Hi, everybody. Welcome back to It's All Light. I'm your host, Natalie Baugh, and I am so thrilled to have a wonderful guest on the podcast this week, Madison Curley. So, Madison Curley is the founder, I guess you could call it, and owner of Prickly Rock Livestock. And we're going to get a little bit of her background story and what she lights up about. So, Madison, tell us just like a little bit about your backstory. Who are you? Where are you from?
Okay, well, I don't know, kind of from all over the place. I grew up partly in Pleasant Grove, and then we moved to Sanpete County, where all of my family is from, and so mostly grew up there too. And yeah, I always knew I wanted to be in ranching. I didn't come from any really background. My dad grew up on a farm, but I didn't grow up like that at all. But I always knew I wanted that. To the point, like, I'm pretty sure my parents were convinced I was going to die alone because I would not date anyone unless they had, like, the same kind of ideas as I did. But
That's awesome.
anyway.
You didn't settle, that's for sure.
I
Like, you
know.
got what you did it.
My dad, at one point, he told me, he's like, it's okay to date someone who does not wear cowboy boots. And I tease him about it now. I'm like, I married someone who's so committed. He wore cowboy boots on our honeymoon on our beach on the cruise. Anyway, so
That's awesome.
that's a great picture.
That's awesome.
But anyway, I always knew I wanted to do that. And then I met my husband, John, and we worked for a big cattle ranch out in Wyoming. We managed that for some awesome people and then decided we wanted to go and pursue that ourselves. And so that's kind of what we did. But then for myself to get some experience, I graduated high school when I was 17. I graduated early, and I found through a family friend connection, I found out about a job in Wyoming on a different ranch.
So
And
cool.
the only position they had open was a cook position. And I just wanted to go work on a ranch so bad that when they asked me, like, do you know how to cook? I said, oh, yeah, I totally know how to cook. I did not know how to cook. I could make bread and, like, subpar bread. It was great. And so just went out there and figured it out. And
Learned how to cook.
Like, yeah, on the job. But it was so great. So that's kind of a little bit about, I don't know, my backstory, I guess.
So fun. And I just spaced you. I usually say how I know my guests. So I actually met Madison through work. We were doing the little work partnership, and just some coworkers and her are good friends. We got to go tour their cute farm, and I just was like, this is amazing. I want this. This is the best. It's just so picturesque, so idyllic. We'll post her Instagram so you can follow along with her amazing recipes and adventures. Every time I see your stories, I'm like, baby chicks and raw milk and all these beautiful cows and just gorgeous sunsets and your cute little kids. So it's pretty fun to watch this dream of yours like unravel and unfold and turn into something just so incredible. So what's a random fun fact? So, like, did you have cowgirl boots ever since you were little? Like, has that always been a thing, or like even when you were a little girl?
It was hard when I was a little girl. We lived in Pleasant Grove, and I remember I had a dream of having a horse. I wanted a horse so bad. I mean, what little girl doesn't, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone wants a horse. I had this jar, and it was my horse jar, and I would put money in this jar, and I was going to save a horse. And essentially, after a while, my dad told me, he's like, wow, we don't live in a place that you can have a horse. It's never going to happen. Kind of like find a new dream. And I never really did. I never really wore cowboy boots, but I was always just a little bit different. I mean, we'd go camping all the time. I was always a little bit rougher, I guess, than my friends. Just not total cowgirl. I wouldn't even consider myself a cowgirl now, but always just a little bit different. I love being in the mountains. Like, that is where that is just it for me. I love being in the mountains. And so I don't know, maybe that's a fun random fact. I don't know.
No, that's great. Do you consider so they live in, do you call it Western Utah? I don't even know. But in a rural part of Utah, do you consider that in the mountains?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's
a mountain town.
It's a mountain town. We live in a little valley, and
so wonderful.
It's where people go camping. And I always joke with John, like, we always need to live in a place where other people think to go camping, because that's like considered mountains.
Then you're in the mountains. Oh, that's so wonderful.
Where we live.
That's awesome. And it's fun to see when you took your family camping, you posted on your story, like actual camping, just even higher up in the mountains, and sourdough pancakes and bacon and raw milk. Like, you guys, it is the dream. It's amazing. I can't wait to hear more about it.
It was a lot of fun. I love to go camping, but not like glamping. We don't take trailers. I mean, we cook over the fire. We
sleep in a tent.
Sleep in a tent. We camp.
Do your kids enjoy it too? She has 3 cute little kids.
You know, this was actually the first time we took them legitimately camping, believe it or not.
Nice.
I mean, they're still pretty little.
Yeah.
And we kind of live camping, right? I mean, we live pretty much in the mountains. We have a fire pit. We'll cook over the fire in the summer and stuff. So we kind of like live camping, and with our lifestyle being what it is, having our livestock and everything, we can't leave as easy. So
right.
This was the first time we took them legitimately camping. And
that's awesome.
My little boy Walker, when we first got there, he's like, we should move here. Like, I agree.
You're like, we that's so great. So with this love of camping and homesteading, ranching, do you call it a ranch or a homestead, or both? A ranch. Yeah, livestock ranch. You also said you love food and you love cooking food, especially sourdough bread, cows, gardening, and movies. We have a lot to cover here. I'm so excited. So your love for cooking, was that just ever since you took that job that you said you'd be a cook? Is that kind of where it started?
That is where it started. Honestly, it was the dream job. If I wasn't married and I'm still single, I'd probably still be doing that. Honestly, I loved it. It was really, really hard at first because it was just me in the kitchen. It wasn't like a dude ranch. It was the owner had a big business, and he would send his colleagues or whoever, like fancy people, out for like this vacation thing. And so they wanted it to be kind of nice. And so it was just me cooking, and we would do breakfast in the morning, and like all out breakfast every morning, like pancakes or French toast or crepes or cinnamon rolls, and I mean basically anything you can think of, and always scrambled eggs or fried eggs or some kind of egg dish, hash browns, bacon or sausage, fruit. I mean, like the works.
A full-on breakfast every day.
Full breakfast every day. And then what I would consider now dinner for lunch. I mean, it was big, a big lunch, and then a small dessert after lunch, and then an even bigger dinner, and a nice dessert after dinner. And it was just me.
And how many people would you cook for?
About 35 people.
Wow. 35. Every day?
Every day.
Wow.
And so it was really hard at first, but once I got the hang of it and in the groove, I mean, it probably just because I really fell in love with cooking. I think if you didn't love cooking, you'd hate it. But I loved it. I got in a groove, and it became maybe not easy, but simple. Like my mind would you just plan it out. Every week I'd plan out a menu, and we lived an hour outside of town and no cell phone service on this ranch. And so I'd plan a menu every week, and then I'd go grocery shopping for all of that. And just once you got in the rhythm of it, it just flowed, and I really learned to love it.
That's amazing.
My style of cooking has changed a lot since then as I've learned some things, but I still love cooking.
Learn some things maybe more nutritional or simpler.
Yep. So in college, I switched majors a couple of times, but at first I was studying nutrition, like human nutrition, and wanted to be a nutritionist.
Wow.
Then switched and wanted to do a more agriculture nutrition, and I wanted to become a large animal vet, and then decided before I spent all this money and time in vet school, I should get a job at a vet clinic. And so that's how I met my husband, as I'd moved to the town he was living in and got a job as a vet tech there. And I loved that job. That job was so great, mostly because of the people, but I learned that I did not want to go
Yeah, it's always good to dip your toes in the water first. And you met your husband. I love that.
Yeah.
What was he up to when you met him? Sorry to cut in the middle of your story.
No, you're good. So he was in the town that we're actually living in now. He was managing the same ranch for the people that we moved out to Wyoming for. So he'd been managing that ranch for them here in Utah for a few years and just kind of building it up. And they had kind of outgrown their space in Utah and wanted to move and find something bigger. And so that's when they bought the big ranch out in Wyoming to expand, and asked John to go out and kind
Mm-hmm.
of start it up for him and figure it out. And so that was right before we met and got married. They asked him to do that. And so then we got married, and right after we got married, we moved out to Wyoming.
That's such a fun experience, especially probably as a newlywed. I love that.
It was really great.
I kind of cut you off on your journey. So you,
You're
after
right.
vet tech, then you went and learned this ranch and holistic and nutritional things on this ranch, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where it started, because these people on the ranch, they were very I don't know the right kind of word for it, but very holistic, nutritionally minded, and they wanted that and to reflect in like their cattle. Like they came to us and like, we don't want to do a lot of these conventional practices anymore, and they had the funds to back it. And so while John was learning these things about cattle, I was a new mom and kind of always knew about nutrition, but it was more like diet culture nutrition, you know? And so then I
Mm-hmm.
really started kind of diving deep into real holistic, I don't know, nutrient dense foods, and started kind of applying that more to my
Mm-hmm.
cooking. It was really an interesting time for us, because we were learning so many different things about cattle and people, and like they're really not like that different. I mean, they are, but because you're
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, one's a cow, one's a person, but the same principles kind of apply, like
Yeah.
healthy, especially, raising. And that's when we really wanted to start raising meat, because we saw kind of this gap in how meat should be raised.
Mm-hmm.
And the grass finish has become a lot more popular now. It is so great, because we saw this gap where families needed this nutrition. They needed this really good nutrient dense food, because that's what beef is. I mean, there's really no argument around it. It is such a nutrient dense, amazing source
Mm-hmm.
of food for your body. And so that we were learning so much about that, and that's kind of where that passion started. Like, we need to be able to offer this to families so people can afford it,
Yeah.
because I feel like it shouldn't be something so high end that average families can't afford it. And so that's kind of what sparked that.
I love that. So when you took this job as a newlyweds, you already had in the back of your mind like your dreams of having your own one day.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely did. That was kind of always our goal. We
Mm-hmm.
had envisioned and imagined being with this other ranch in Wyoming for a lot longer. Like, the goal was kind of always like maybe 10 years we'd be with these people, because there were some things that we thought we could do with them that just didn't end up working out, which is why we were only with them for a couple of years. And it was really
Mm-hmm.
hard at the time, because we felt like maybe we were giving up a dream, but it actually kind of pushed us more into doing our own thing. So
Doing your own thing.
it worked out really good.
That's awesome. It's so cool to just see your journey and your story. I love it.
Thanks.
So, sourdough bread. I'm jumping to the next topic. This is
Yes.
something I need to get into. So, the biggest kick nutritional wise for sourdough bread is that it digests better in your body. What
Mm-hmm.
else would you say for sourdough?
Oh, so many things.
And the taste. It tastes amazing.
It's amazing. Sourdough bread is just wonderful. So it kind of honestly goes along the same time. So right as we were kind of learning this, I just had my baby and was kind of having some health, not problems, but kind of like concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to get everything back to balance after just having a baby, and just trying to get some stuff going. So I was working with a holistic doctor that I had here in Utah before we moved, and I was kind of working with him over the phone and stuff. Did some blood work, and he recommended gluten free. So
Mm.
I did that for a while, and it was awful. I'm not made for gluten free. And my mom and grandma had kind of always dabbled in sourdough bread growing up, but it was always, Mom, if you're listening to this, your bread is amazing. It was very different. It was very different. And I never liked sourdough bread really growing up. It was always because it's sour. It's really, and so I started learning more about it and what it does and how it breaks things down and makes things more available for your body. And like, this is how bread should be made. And it is. It's how bread was made forever, because until conventional yeast was made, how there was nothing else. It was sourdough.
Mhm.
Grains
Mhm.
were all meant to be soaked
You
for.
go to Europe and it's still a lot of it's still very old fashioned, right? And that's why it tastes so good. Their bakeries, they do it right.
Yes, well, and they have more, what I could, old fashioned. I can't think of the type of word that I want to use, but more like old fashioned kind of grains. They haven't
Mhm. Yeah.
the, the United States has.
Like, yeah, there's a word for it. Stripped to the basics, like, I don't know.
I know, I know. I'm thinking of the same word. I just can't.
It'll come to
But
us.
oh, but anyway, well,
Mm.
their farming practices are a lot different too. So when I teach a sourdough class, and I always kind of go over ingredients with people, because I just don't think it's well known, because organic gets a lot of hype, both good and bad.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
here in the United States, we use a lot of glyphosate and a lot of those chemicals and stuff, and they can actually, depending on what part of the country the grain is being farmed in, if it's really wet and they need it to dry out faster, they can use glyphosate as a desiccant, and they can spray it like right before they harvest it to dry it out.
Ah.
Oh yeah. So I always, and that's just the ending part. Even spraying it in the beginning changes molecularly how it grows, and that's, I
Mm.
don't need to really get into that, but I always stress the importance of organic. And I think that's why a lot of people, when they go over to Europe, because they have more of these older type grains that haven't been changed and haven't been sprayed, and they have more of these traditional practices, they can eat the bread and be just,
Mhm.
and they come
Yeah.
back to the States and they can't. So,
Extra processed.
yes. Oh, it's, yeah, crazy. But
Yeah.
anyway, I started learning all of that, and how to make sourdough bread and how to make it good, and using organic flour and doing longer ferments, because the longer you let it ferment, the more it breaks down the gluten. And by breakdown, I don't mean like make it gluten free, but it makes it more absorbable. It's like pre-digesting your food. It sounds really
Mhm.
it
But
sounds
that's
awful.
like for what fermentation can do. Like that's why you ferment vegetables or
Exactly.
sprouted nuts or beans is
Uh-huh.
similar, right?
Yeah, it is. I'll sprout the beans. It's not necessarily like fermenting, but it's unlocking those nutrients and breaking down like the phytic acid, or oh my gosh, the word anti-nutrients that your body,
Yeah.
breaking those down for you, so that when your body eats, when you eat it, your body's like, "Oh, I got this. I can use those minerals. I can use those vitamins. I don't have to like."
And take it where it needs to go.
Yep, yep. So I started learning a lot about that, and have been eating sourdough bread for years now. And every time I get my blood work done, I guess the past couple times I haven't gotten it, he knows now that I'm eating bread. But the last few times that I had my blood work done from eating the sourdough bread, he'd be like, "Oh, you've been doing so good with your gluten free. Your markers are amazing. Like, you're doing really good." I'm like, "I'm actually not gluten free. I'm eating sourdough bread, and a lot of it." But yeah, it's just learning how to prepare it. It makes it really, really amazing.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that that's a parallel for so many other foods, like just your grown vegetables and things you just cook and feed your family. Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It makes cooking more enjoyable too because it just tastes better.
It
Yeah.
ta- well, and it feels better. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm crazy, but like food has a feeling. Like when you're making something and you know that it's good, and then it's going to nourish your body. Especially for me, like knowing that my kids are going to eat this, and not only they're going to be fed, but like their little bodies are going to be nourished. It's just this feeling that just feels so good, and it's
Mm,
addictive. That's why I keep doing all that I do, because I love it. I love that feeling.
that's awesome. So I know it's probably just so much with your ranch and cooking. Do you feel like you are pretty adamant though with like a breakfast, lunch, and a dinner for your family amidst all
Yeah,
your ranch chores?
yeah.
I
It's
love that.
I cook all of the meals. I guess I shouldn't say I. John loves to cook too. I got really lucky because we both really love to cook.
Good.
Have really similar mindsets around food and how food should be. So I got really lucky, and when I started making a lot of changes to our diet and our food and things that we were doing, he was not only on board with it, but it would push me to kind of take the next step or figure out more. And so I got really, really lucky in that area.
So you said I'm jumping topics, by the way. Sorry. I'm looking at the list. You mentioned you loved horses growing up. And then another thing you light up about now is cows. I mean, being a ranch owner. So do you have a passion for cows? Like you learned about beef and how important that was and the gap in the market. But I don't know, how has that expanded just your take on meat and just the ranch in general? And cows.
And cows. I love cows. I really do. I think that they kind of get underrated. Like, oh, it's just a stupid cow. I'm like, actually, it's not. But I mean, I kind of get what you're saying. But because they just kind of do their thing out in the pasture. But I love cows. I think their purpose is to nourish people. That's really not a popular statement, but I really feel that is their purpose of what they are put here on this earth to do. And I feel so grateful that we have been entrusted with that stewardship to watch over these animals so that they can feed our family and families of our customers. I feel like that is really an honor.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool way of looking at it too. I mean, whether it's their milk or their beef, like that's so cool. I had steak for lunch today and I'm pro cows. I love cows. They're cute too.
They are so great. Oh, I hope I didn't just kill the battery in this thing. But yeah, I love cows. I never would have thought that I would be as passionate about cows as I am. But ranchers get a bad rap. They get a bad rap on social media sometimes because people just think that ranchers are in it for the money. And any rancher, like, there's not money in it right now. To be for the money, it's because they truly love it, and that stewardship. They are there when the animals take their first breath. They raise them, they take care of them. I mean, they're out there late at nights when they're having their babies. They're making sure they have enough food and water. I mean, they are taking care of these animals because yes, they're their livelihood, but they're their responsibility.
Yeah.
And when they die. And I'm here to tell you that if you think it's easy for a rancher to watch their animals die, even though you know that they're serving a greater purpose, there is kind of always it's kind of always sad.
Yeah.
To see is either take care of them as babies and all throughout their life but it's really coming back to that gratitude, being so grateful for everything cows are going to do afterwards that makes it all worth it.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that you see the greater picture and the greater perspective of it and the why behind what you do. That's so cool and I feel like you guys had that from the foundation and then it's just blossoming and blooming into just what people need, which is so cool. And I'm so grateful to learn from it. I'm like, this is just the best. I'm looking more at your form and you mentioned a little bit of agriculture, gardening, and canning. That's something so there's like so many pieces to a ranch and a homesteading and nutritional eating, but you grow in your garden most of the food you guys eat, right?
I shouldn't say most. That is a goal of mine to one day put up like a big chunk of our food. And
yeah.
I'm learning how to do that. I do love to bottle. I bottle hundreds of jars every year.
That's so cool. I don't even know, like, what do you put them in, water and salt or vinegar?
It just depends.
Just depends what you're bottling. That's awesome.
So like I did peaches this year, and with peaches, so I do peaches, pears, and applesauce. I do lots of jars of those every year because we go through lots of those. And with the peaches, you just do some hot water, and I do a tablespoon of honey. Some people do sugar, and then just your peeled and cut up peaches, and then you process them, and then
do you have to like seal the jars a special way so they're even more tight?
That's what you do when you process them. So there's two kinds of canning. There's water bath canning and there's pressure canning, and both of them make them shelf stable.
Cool.
As long as your jars seal. So yes, jars, they do have to seal. You use the lids and the rings. And if you're seal, then they're shelf stable. If they don't seal, you either got to process them again, depending on what it is, or you got to eat it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's so cool. And then you just have a ton of food storage. Like you mentioned on your on your Instagram, you posted like obviously winter's coming and you can't garden in the winter, and
I know.
you store what you have, harvest it.
Mm-hmm.
So what does agriculture mean to you?
Agriculture, it means so many things, but to me, it's taking stewardship of what God has given you. For us, obviously, it means the land, the cows,
Mm-hmm.
and agriculture is that is more, I guess, the definition of agriculture. It's farming, it's ranching, it's taking
Mm-hmm.
care of the soil health is really, really important, which I guess you working at Redmond, maybe you know a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Soil tests and stuff, it all comes back down to the soil and the nutrient health of the soil, even for cows, not just for like growing crops or anything, but for cows too, because what
With
do
the
cows
grass it grows. Yeah.
they eat the grass that grows, they eat the hay, they eat the forages. I mean, that's it, all comes down to the soil health. So just taking care of the land and the animals, which we're all ultimately renting anyway, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this land doesn't belong to us, it belongs to God. And so
I like
just
that.
take care of what he has blessed us with.
Yeah. I think it's cool you mentioned that, though, not only like just the careful processes, but don't you guys have like I remember on the tour you have like a special machine that makes sure
Mm,
the
the
soil,
fodder.
yeah, that
Yeah.
helps it just be as, I don't know, what does that do?
So that's not actually for soil.
Oh.
The fodder unit, but it does grow stuff. So I can see how that could be a little bit confusing. So a fodder unit you put it's essentially like a little mini greenhouse. So we would put
Mm,
chili seed in it, and it's got lights and water, and you rotate it through, and after 7 days it's grown this really tall grass that you call barley mats. It's got the seed on the bottom and the grass is
sweet.
really, and that's what we would use to finish our cattle, and the cows, they love it. We only really do that when we can't. We've kind of switched up our program a little bit so that we can utilize more of the pasture and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of natural forages and stuff. But in the wintertime, it's a huge asset because there is no fresh grass in the winter here.
Mm-hmm.
It's snow on the ground. So
Yeah. That's
yeah,
so cool.
yeah.
I love that. I love that it's like with the fruits and vegetables, like a season for it, but there's also like ways to run things like that are, in a sense, like the most wholesome way to run a ranch, or the process is done and to make sure the animals are being taken care of, and then it all just comes back to that you get the essential nutrients like in the most pure form, like from chicken eggs to the beef. It's just so cool. I love that there's so much of a science to it, but also just I think people resonate with it because it's just like innately just how the world is and
Yep.
what we're drawn toward. I love it. Any other thoughts just around the ranch in general that has been on your mind lately?
Oh, just I don't know, just gratitude. I is really what it all comes down to for me. Grateful because I feel very fortunate that we do get to live the life that we do. Because I know I get messages every day from people on our Instagram account how they wish that they had more of this opportunity. And so, really, I'm just so grateful that we have been blessed with this style to raise our family and grow our food and bless others along the way.
Yeah, and you and your husband John are great teachers in helping people learn how to do this, and like there's so much that goes into it. It's not just buying a cow and buying a chicken. It's like building, like your husband builds like the metal structures and the fences and the gates
Mm-hmm.
and just every little thing you guys do. It's so cool to see all the effort you put into it and just how smart you guys are too. Like business wise too. I mean, you're running a business, not just a ranch. Like it's so cool. It's so cool to see all these pieces come together and work. And I love that you're always coming up with new ideas. You post great content, and your sourdough classes, I'll have to post that so people can go and join.
Yeah,
That's so fun.
we need to do another one. I've been busy working on this book, but I'm hoping to get another beginner's class out before the holidays. So
And you said you've been quilting. I'm like, how do you find time to quilt? That's amazing.
quilting, I do love to quilt, but that one is one that has definitely like taken a back burner, but I did just get a sewing machine again, so I'm hoping to pick it back up.
That's awesome. It's cool. Like your passion and your hobby is your life and your career. So it's like you also still need the things that are different than that to like get a break in a sense. Like I work in marketing, but like I have my podcast, I just don't market it, even though I know how to market it. It's just like when you've done that for your day job, you don't want to do it at night. My friend who's a chef, she's the same way. She's like, if I cook all day, like I don't want to cook for myself at the end of the day. Like it's pretty funny sometimes how that goes. So I love that you like incorporate just living life and finding ways to enjoy and grow, like quilting, learn how to do that. I think that's so cool. I admire you a lot, and I like barely know you. I'm like, can we be best friends? Teach me your ways.
I told you when you came out, you're seriously welcome anytime. We're always
so fun. I love it. And I am excited for more people to know about your account and have this great resource to just kind of get back to the basics, right? And clean up your gut. And I mean, so many people have so many health issues, and I think so much of it is, I mean, grounding for one, just walking around a farm, you know, like just being in nature, like you said, like that for me is like the number one thing. Is just get out to the mountains and then eat good food, and you'll be happy.
Eat good food. I don't know. I feel so bad for people who, because I was in diet culture for a long time. And I have this friend who is just so stressed about food all the time, and intermittent fasting and certain diets and when to eat and how to eat. And I'm like, oh, like just take a deep breath, just live life, eat good food. Like, you know what to do. Eat things that feel good. Eat good beef. Eat your sourdough bread. Like, it's okay. These things are good for you, and they're meant to be enjoyed.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Like, just, I mean, occasionally if you do have fast food or too much sugar, like you can definitely tell how your body reacts to it, you know, and eventually that'll propel you to be like, yeah, no, I shouldn't be putting this in my body. You know, it doesn't make me feel good. Versus when you have a good salad or a good piece of steak, like it just makes you feel happy too, because your body's getting what it needs. So I love that. I have your quote written here. Unless you have it memorized, I want to end with the quote that you shared.
Sorry, I don't even remember.
No, you're good. It's a great quote. It says, find something you're passionate about and keep tremendously interested in it. That's by Julia Child.
Yep.
Yeah, there's quotes of Julia Child around the Redmond Heber store, like in the bathroom. There's a cute Julia Child quote. It's like all the best people love food, and it's true. Yeah. I love that.
That movie, Julie and Julia. I watched it for the first time. It's been a minute ago, and I was kind of in a point. I was in a bit of a slump. Didn't quite know what to do with my account, with life. I just, my husband and I were watching that movie. She was kind of going through the same thing, and her husband's like, well, what do you like to do? And she goes, eat. He's like, that's like you. I'm like, I know, I need to write a book or something. So that, I don't know, really kind of resonated with me watching that movie, and kind of gave me a kick in the pants to move forward and teach people about food and how to make food good.
Yeah, well, because you're so good at it, and it's so great to share, because it's a journey for me to figure out how to make it good and pay attention to not just a random produce at the grocery store, but like actually what organic means and why that matters, or cleaning my vegetables with a solution that I'm still like so far from doing, but I know it's like so important. So thank you so much. Is there anything else you think people would benefit knowing just as they listen to today's episode?
I just be happy, I guess. Eat beef and be happy.
Eat beef and be happy. Amen. I think my takeaway, I just love that with every question you kind of put it back to gratitude, just like gratitude and stewardship. Like you have found a purpose for your life, and that's manifested in so many ways, but like everybody has their unique gifts and purposes. Like you didn't know you loved cooking, but then it came natural to you, and then it's grown into how you feed cows, how you feed your children. Like it all just kind of full circles into this purpose. So I encourage everyone to find what their purpose is, and like it sparks from like what you love, right? You love to eat, and so eat good food. Learn how to make sourdough. Like I love it. So Thank you so much, Madison, for being on the podcast. And yeah, I'll leave her Instagram for anyone, and exciting things to come. She's working on a cookbook and sourdough classes. So we'll keep you in the loop. And yeah, have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.